Hello everybody and welcome to another preview and this is the preview of the British Grand Prix. Yes, we've got another racetrack with two more races at it at the same venue. Silverstone will be hosting the next two races of the F1 2020 season. We of course have this first race coming up, which is the British Grand Prix, and then the second race coming up will be the 70th anniversary Formula 1 race. But yep, this is the British Grand Prix. We've obviously got a few talking points to go through before I give my predictions. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the preview of the British Grand Prix. So yeah, like I said, I've got a few pieces to just mention and just to discuss. Well, there's obviously been features about on the Formula 1 website. We do have a 10 things we learned from the first three races of the season. Now obviously Formula 1 have put this out themselves, so I'm just going to have a look through and see if anything sort of takes my fancy, just to have a quick look through before we go into the actual preview of the race. Number one, Mercedes are further ahead than they thought they'd be. I think that's accurate to say. I don't think there's anybody really that can stop Mercedes already this year. I know we're only 3 races in, and you know, that's maybe being a bit going too far ahead with you know, possible upgrades that other teams can make. But I just think like Ferrari are so far down that any progress they make this year won't be able to catch up to Mercedes, and sort of the same thing with Red Bull. I was expecting a little bit more from them at the beginning of this year, so you know, I agree again that it's going to be between Bottas and Hamilton. Hopefully Bottas can continue to keep the points gap close, and you know, who knows, might actually win this season, but you know, I think it's going to be very difficult with the way Hamilton started the season. Ferrari are not as competitive as hoped, but are fighting hard. We already know, you know, where Ferrari are at, like I've just mentioned. I don't really think it needs to go into too much more detail. I think we've already mentioned what, you know, Ferrari's happened. They have had a bit of a restructure since the last race. I'm just trying to think. Let's have a look at the news. So team principal Valtteri Bottas hinted at changes after the race, and a few days later the confirmation arrived that there had been a new technical team restructure at Ferrari. Nobody senior in the team lost their positions. However, there has been a senior, I think there's been a new person in the technical department that's now come in and tried to restructure. I think it's a good idea. I think Valtteri Bottas has sort of been the figurehead, as it were, and I think he does need a bit of help in the situation that they're at the moment. So I think it's only good news for them that they're doing that, but only time will tell where they are in terms of as the season progresses. But like I mentioned before, they won't be as dominant as Mercedes this year. Red Bull are Mercedes' greatest threat, but have a long way to go. Again, like I mentioned, Red Bull aren't as close as I thought they'd be. Alex Albon seems to have a bit of a dip in form. Max Verstappen is there and thereabouts, but can never sort of make that jump. You know, we saw it at Austria with Bottas, where he was just waiting to be overtaken. Almost the same thing in Hungary, where the Red Bull was ahead, but it was sort of a sitting duck in the fact that, you know, a couple more laps and I think Bottas would have had Verstappen at the end of the race. But you know, like I said, they a little bit disappointing is actually where they are in terms of performance, but you know, hopefully they can improve a little bit to fight a little bit more in terms of the season. For Williams have hauled themselves back into the midfield. Yes, good news. I did say hopefully they'd make some progress before the season started, and that is the case. Another good news really, that there's no driver changes for Williams for next year either. They've secured Latifi, you know, again doing okay first few 3 races of his debut F1 season. Probably can only get better. In terms of George Russell, I think it's crucial that they keep him for another season. You know, has been talks about him going to Mercedes if Bottas wouldn't have been renewed, but obviously Williams making sure that he's there for 2021 is majorly important for them. I think Claire Williams said in a interview the other day that this will actually make George Russell as a driver stronger going forward, you know, being in this team at this moment in time, being a part of a team with the engineers and just trying to make every little gain worth it and possible. So I think she's right. I think it will only make Russell a better driver, and I think it's good that they're making progress, and maybe next year when they're there for 2021 that they're even closer to the mid pack. But yeah, Williams are looking good. A Racing Point are a podium threat. We know that. I don't think we need to go into detail too much more about that. Norris has stepped up in season 2 at McLaren. Again, we've seen that first 2 races in Austria. A little bit of a dip in Hungary, but McLaren were never going to be strong at the Hungaroring. But good performances from Lando Norris in the first 2. Vettel is still valuable at Ferrari. Now, obviously, we had the issues in the first race for Vettel when he spun. Issues for Ferrari in general for the second Austrian Grand Prix with the both of them being out really on the first lap. But Hungary, he did well, managed to get up and helped get the team to finish in 11th, with Leclerc finishing in 11th. But it was his strategy call to say he wanted to go on the medium compound tyres, I think, at that point, instead of the soft compound tyres. And obviously Leclerc went on the soft and really struggled at the beginning of the race, and he finished in 11th place. So Vettel, I think, is still important for Ferrari. I think he's still making them big decisions and big calls, maybe even off the track as well. But who knows? Again, George Russell, we've just talked about him, how he's really important for Williams. Tough season for Ferrari customers in general in terms of their engine power. Alfa Romeo really struggled at the beginning of this season. I keep saying, we're only 3 races in, but with a very short calendar this year, 3 races is quite actually a huge chunk of the season. Like I said, Alfa Romeo have looked really off it. Like Kimi Raikkonen, I think he started the Hungarian Grand Prix at the back of the grid. Absolutely crazy. Same with Haas, really struggled, but I think Haas, in terms of their car, it's maybe not just the engines. They always seem to have troubles with brakes. Austria in the first 2 races were having issues with braking. Real shame actually. Before we move on in terms of Haas, I only just realised while looking for the notes for the preview of this that actually Haas were given a 10-second penalty, for both of their drivers, because the stewards believe they breached F1 sporting regulations by telling both of the drivers to pit for dry tyres on the formation lap. Now, Gunter Steiner has said that he wouldn't change a thing. That was the right decision at the time, and it obviously was, because the strategy call was majorly important to come straight in on the dry tyres. And worked for them. Kevin Magnussen managed to get, I think he was in 10th place at the point. Grosjean finished in 16th, but they managed to get their first points of the season. The stewards demoted Magnussen, but he finished in P10, so they still technically have a point. That's crucial, I suppose. Bit harsh, I think. Maybe they breached sporting regulations, but I think it was only a matter if they hadn't said it. I expect the drivers would have said it themselves. We saw Kvyat on the team radio saying, "I really think we should pit for dry tyres," and then Magnussen and Grosjean came in and he went, "Well, Haas have done it. Why didn't we?" And I think it was only a matter of time before the drivers did actually say it. But a little bit annoying for Haas that's obviously been implemented for them. Ferrari power units may struggle this year. And then Lewis Hamilton says still the wet weather master. Not sure that's the case. I'm not sure he's the master of the wet weather. I'm pretty sure there's better drivers than Lewis Hamilton in wet conditions. But did excel in terms of the Austrian second race qualifying, or the second race weekend, should I say, in qualifying. Absolutely nailed that lap around the Red Bull Ring, and did show his might in that qualifying session as well. So Lewis Hamilton is going to be very difficult for Bottas to beat this year, but I think him getting that first win was crucial, and he's obviously still keeping in that points position. So if he continues to do that for the rest of the year, then that's going to be majorly important. He obviously does need to win a few races. I think the next 2 at Silverstone are very winnable for Bottas. Obviously Hamilton will want to win the British Grand Prix, but he won't have the fan support that he usually has at the event. So it's a race that Bottas can easily win in that hugely powerful Mercedes at this moment in time. After going through the news, obviously have to mention actually before we go on to the previews, they have increased the race calendar for this year. Is talk, of course, that they won't be heading to America at this time, so the Americas. So they're not heading to the USA, they're not heading to Mexico, they're not heading to Brazil or Canada, with obviously what's been going on recently and new developments in terms of the coronavirus pandemic. So that's 13 races that are confirmed. They still say there's obviously more to be announced. There is talk obviously of the Spanish Grand Prix as well. That's being looking into with of course more quarantine regulations going in for the country, with an extra spike. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think that race is for the 14th of August. So yep, something to monitor, and whether that one may change. But of course we've got 3 races, like I said. The Nürburgring is coming back. Now I'm a little bit gutted it's not Hockenheim, because I actually think that's a better race circuit for the German Grand Prix. If you prefer the Nürburgring, then fantastic, but I thought the last couple of races at Germany at Hockenheim have been absolutely fantastic. Last year's was the best race of the season in my opinion. So yeah, the Nürburgring, the 9th to the 11th of October is when that'll be taking place, going back to Germany, which is good. 23rd to the 25th of October we're in Portugal, which is fantastic to go to have a Portuguese Grand Prix. Will be incredible. Portimao, I think I've pronounced that right. Apologies if there's anybody out there who speaks Portuguese or is from Portugal and I've absolutely butchered the name of that. And then the 31st of October to the 1st of November we're back at Imola. First time since 2006. Plenty of drivers, most of the drivers on the grid actually haven't even been to Imola, so it'll be incredible. I don't know if anyone actually has, actually. That's an interesting stat. Has Lewis Hamilton been there? I don't think he was. Yeah, the first time back since 2006. So that's going to be great. Have 2 Italian races this year on this calendar, so that will be fantastic as well. So great to see that Formula 1 are still announcing races, although we're having a few cancellations here and there and races that won't go ahead, but it's great to see they're still trying to get as many races on the calendar as possible. So that's the news. Let's go into the preview predictions of the British Grand Prix. So who do I think is going to finish where in the British Grand Prix race weekend? Now for people in the UK, both channels have it live this weekend, which is fantastic to see. Like free to air on Channel 4 will be able to watch. It's all live this weekend coming, so it'd be fantastic to get and watch that. More people will obviously be viewing the F1 this weekend, and I think it will really show that free to air is really the way to go in terms of Formula 1. But in terms of where I think everybody will be, I think it'll be another strong weekend for Racing Point and McLaren. I think both of them will be back up higher on the order, especially McLaren, who had a bit of an off period at the Hungarian Grand Prix. I think this is going to be more of a track that suits them. Obviously, Racing Point's home really is Silverstone, so they should be better equipped for this weekend again. Expect to see Racing Point's trying to get on the podium and to get second or third on the qualifying stage as well, so look out for that. Of course, I think Ferrari are going to bring improvements again. Same with Red Bull. I think they're only going to be stronger this weekend, but I think in terms of where the pole position and everything will be, it'll obviously be between the 2 Mercedes. I think with it being the British Grand Prix this time round, I think Lewis Hamilton might edge it again for pole position. Valtteri Bottas will finish in 2nd, and then there might be a Racing Point in 3rd position. I'm not sure who. Might give it to Lance Stroll, which is not like me, but I can just feel like Lance Stroll may get that 3rd place on the qualifying positions. But if it's not, Sergio Perez will be close behind. I think Sergio Perez would be 3rd if it wasn't for Stroll. So I think it will be Mercedes, Racing Point, then Red Bull, and then wherever Ferrari are, maybe McLaren as well. And then going into the actual race, I think it's interesting because obviously we had the first 2 races of the season at Austria. We've obviously got 2 races now at Silverstone, and it will be interesting. Whoever wins the first race, are they going to go on to win the second race at the same track? It is going to be interesting. I think Lewis Hamilton, with it being the British Grand Prix, he will obviously want to win it. I think if you're Valtteri Bottas, this is the race where you really want to beat your teammate, to beat them at their home Grand Prix. Obviously Bottas doesn't have a Finnish Grand Prix, so yeah, having the British Grand Prix is surely a motivation to beat Hamilton at his home circuit. Going into the weekend after at the 70th Grand Prix race, that one might be one where Bottas may be stronger going into it. Obviously, it's still the Silverstone, but it's not the British Grand Prix. I know Hamilton's always going to have the incentive to win every single race, but I feel with this one actually being the British Grand Prix, there's more incentive for Hamilton to win it. So I think it may be a bit of a struggle to Bottas to get this one, unless there's some issues or a pit strategy call that maybe Bottas goes in first, gets the call first, or anything like that. Obviously, anything can happen in Formula One. So who knows in that regard. I still think Lewis Hamilton will probably win this weekend at Silverstone. Bottas will finish second again unless any issues are there. Bottas needs to finish second if Hamilton wins, of course, to keep that points gap there. And then, like I said, anyone can finish third, really, to be honest. I've obviously said Racing Point, but if Red Bull have a faster race car, depends on where Ferrari are, depends on where McLaren are. Are Renault going to be stronger this race weekend coming? Absolutely no idea. I'm doing these predictions and I have still, with this being the 4th race of the F1 calendar, have no idea really in terms of where we are in terms of performance, where each team's ranked. All we know is that's where Mercedes are, that's where everybody else is. It's going to be a good one. So I'm probably going to go with the same finish order as I have for pole position as well in terms of qualifying. Hamilton wins, Bottas second, and then a Racing Point in 3rd place. Not sure who. Like I said, I might feel like Lance Stroll might get it, but Sergio Perez excellent in the race in terms of tyre management, so he may prevail in terms of getting that podium for Racing Point. So that's my predictions for the British Grand Prix. Please let me know yours. What are your thoughts going into the weekend? What do you feel about the new calendar lineup with the addition of Nürburgring, Portimao and Imola? Please let me know your thoughts on that, and of course subscribe to the Pole Position YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all for a review of the British Grand Prix. See you in that video. Take care.